今天您将收看的是，
它是一封温柔至极的情书，也是一段记忆的冷峻再现。今晚我们看电影，一起走进充满爱与力量的影片《罗马》。
大家好，观众朋友们，您现在看到的是今晚我们看电影。来自墨西哥的制片人尼古拉斯·塞利斯，他担任了2019年第22届上海国际电影节主竞赛单元金爵奖的评委。同时呢，他也是2019年奥斯卡最佳外语片《罗马》的制片人。那在今天的节目当中，我们请塞利斯为我们来解读一下，如何才能成就一部优秀的影片。
尼古拉斯·塞利斯，墨西哥制片人，担任了第22届上海国际电影节金爵奖剧情片单元评委。此前，由他和阿方索·卡隆、加布里埃拉·罗德里格斯共同担任联合制片人的电影《罗马》在2018年的影坛大放异彩。该片由阿方索·卡隆执导并亲自掌镜，斩获了包括第75届威尼斯国际电影节最佳影片金狮奖、第91届奥斯卡金像奖最佳导演、最佳摄影奖、第76届金球奖最佳导演、最佳外语片等在内的多项最高奖项。当高光时刻褪去，站在制片人的角度来看，塞利斯接手项目的标准只有一个：这是不是一个好的故事？
Well, Roma was the biggest challenge in my career because I think working with a filmmaker like Alfonso Cuarón, it's an honor. It's a director that I grew up with watching his movies. This project was one of the most important in his career. It was his comeback to Mexico and his comeback after making several important films. You know, movies that will be always there, movies that even time hasn't forgotten, you know, movies that are very important, and that he decided to come back to Mexico and wanted to do his personal project. He wanted to do the movie in the best possible conditions, you know. I think that as filmmakers, you know, sometimes in order to make movies you have concessions in terms of, you know, that in financing, that you need to raise money for your film, so you give up certain elements. So this was a project where Alfonso didn't want to make any concessions. So I think from the start that's a very big challenge, because you know you have a very strong voice, you know, a very determined director, producer, editor, writer, cinematographer in this case, that wanted to do the project in the best conditions. So it was a project done by the heart. The films I'm interested in, speaking as a producer, but I think Alfonso, you know, took us to this journey with him in a film that he wanted to do, and that was not pursuing getting all the awards that we got. I think he wanted to do the film, and then, of course, once the movie was done, the movie was positioned and was really well received by the audience and by the festival, by the critics, by the journalists, by everyone around the world, which is a very big gift. But I think the movie was done by the right reasons. It connected with everybody, or most of the people.
¿Estás bien? Yo no la quería. No la quería. ¿Estás bien? Yo no quería que naciera. Te queremos mucho, Cleo. ¿Verdad? Sí.
影片《罗马》的故事发生在墨西哥城一个名为罗马的社区中，讲述年轻女佣克里奥在雇主索菲亚家中工作。女雇主索菲亚的丈夫长期在外，由女佣克里奥照顾索菲亚的4个孩子。突如其来的2个意外同时砸中了克里奥和索菲亚，主仆2人究竟该如何面对苦涩茫然的生活？4个孩子似乎是希望所在。这是以导演阿方索·卡隆的儿时记忆著称的影片，由其自编自导自拍自剪， 片中的3个小男孩身上都有导演本人的影子。
We were not only doing a period movie, you know, that people might think it's just a period movie in Mexico in the 70s, you know, about a Mexican family. It's Alfonso's childhood, which is, you know, his childhood, the way he remembered everything. So you didn't only have to do a movie that looked like 1970. It had to be exactly the same as his childhood. And also, he's a director that looked, you know, and was expecting to have reality in this movie, in terms that we had to shoot the movie where things took place. You know, so we shot in his childhood street, neighborhood, you know. In the hospital is the exact same hospital where it happened. The only building that wasn't, you know, destroyed with the earthquake, exactly in the same street and in the same building. So there was a big search, you know, from Alfonso for truthfulness. Eugenio Caballero, the production designer, which is, you know, one person I admire a lot, which he did also the Pan's Labyrinth with Guillermo del Toro. You know, he has done a lot of international films. And Eugenio recreated the biggest sets from Mexican cinema. You know, he built, you know, full of details, because every single set in the movie had to be done in the sense that Alfonso could shoot a close-up or a wide shot, you know. So because nobody read the script, Alfonso had it, but he didn't share it with us, which means, you know, Alfonso had the plans, you know, the map on how to do the movie, but he didn't share it with us. So we prepared a lot the movie. We had long conversations with him and with all the heads of departments, but you never knew all the details. The dog, for example, the dog that is jumping and that everybody loves, you know, it looks exactly as his childhood dog. So we had to find a dog that wasn't trained, because we realized that all the trained dogs didn't look like his childhood dog. So we had to go and look for a picture of how the dog looked, borras, you know, and with that picture start looking on the streets of Mexico City for that dog. And then we trained it. The actors looked like his brothers, you know, like his family. So not only they had to be good actors, they had to resemble to the real life characters. So all of what I'm saying is just means that every single detail of the film was a big challenge. And of course, when you shoot long shots, you cannot, you know, hide your mistakes. You know, if you shoot for a 3-minute take, you know, you cannot cut it. You know, it has to work from the beginning to the end. So I of course learned a lot and love to take those risks.
在罗马的选角过程中，导演的标准就是演员要长得像他的家人，因此除了女雇主索菲亚的扮演者之外，其他演员都没有任何演出经验。饰演女佣克里奥的亚丽扎·阿巴里西奥刚刚从学校毕业，准备找一份教师的工作，听了朋友推荐才去参加罗马的选角试镜并入选。这个角色的原型正是抚养阿方索长大的保姆丽波，全片亦是他写给这位伟大女性的一封情书。导演用回忆构筑1970年代墨西哥城生活的点滴，献给一个时代追寻儿时的记忆。
I think that you have your own memories, but there's a lot of things that did really happen. You know, we did a lot of research, and it was very precise. The movie the kids go to see to the cinema is the movie that was scheduled in that cinema that same day at that time. The programs on TV showed that day, if it was a Sunday, if it was a Monday. The radio stations also, we used the same programs, and we hired the same locutors to recreate the programs. The music, every single thing in terms of of what happened, the dates and everything, was pretty much realistic. And I think that people felt that. The audience, even younger audience, connected with that. You know, because the memories of the families, you know, their memories of the collective memory of that time, also, you know, connected. Even if you didn't know everything, but I think that one of the things people talks a lot about the film is that the precision about the recreation, the reproduction of the period. And also something very important that Alfonso speaks about, it was shot black and white, digital, 65 millimeters, but digital. But he wanted to make a movie that looked contemporary. He wanted a movie that looked like 2018, not a movie that looked like from the 1970s that had a lot of nostalgia. In the style of this film is really, really impressive.
导演阿方索·卡隆1961年出生在墨西哥城，被誉为墨西哥电影三杰之一。罗马的故事本身很大程度以阿方索的个人经历为蓝本，即他成长的墨西哥城科洛尼亚罗马区的童年生活。对他而言，这是一个非常私人化的故事，这使得他在本就真实且强有力的叙事上添加了更丰富动人的细节。
He was the pioneers, at least for the Mexican cinema from the, you know, in 1990s. It was very hard to make a movie in Mexico. And he's the one that, you know, broke, you know, that trend. He opened a path for me, for, you know, contemporary filmmakers. He made his first feature. He became the first director going out of Mexico to shoot in Europe, in the US. Then other filmmakers followed, but I think he's very courageous, very, you know, determined. You know, he was a producer of the film. Also, Gabriela Rodriguez, that she has been working with Alfonso for 14 years. So we had a very good team in terms of how to help, because I think that being a producer, it's by helping. It's not who's the boss, you know. I think that in this kind of independent cinema, you know, it's about how to help and give the tools and the best resources available to an artist, so they can, you know, perform their craft the better way. So, of course, it's not easy, and you have to stay on budget, and you have to, you know, deliver at the end of the day. You know, a film is not, but I think we managed to do this journey together, you know, which wasn't easy. I think that making movies sometimes is painful, or most of the times it's painful. I don't know, I prefer doing this kind of movies, you know, because if it's easy, you know, everybody can do it, or you know, the expectations in films where the quality is very low. I like directors that push, because if they push and I don't fall apart and I keep following them, I'm also, you know, going further in my limits, you know, and my capacity. So of course, I think Roma was a big challenge, and I think that's some of the big qualities the movie has, that you see the level of detail of everything, on the sound, on the image, of the art, in the costumes, in the acting, in the, you know, in the setup, everything in the movie. It's really taken care of, and of course, it's not easy, but definitely has an amazing payoff.
Nosotros aquí estamos.
Solo son unas semanas.
整部影片通过女佣克里奥的眼睛展现了两条叙事线，一条是克里奥的个人际遇，以及和索菲亚一家循序渐进的情感递增。 另一条则是从集体的层面，以平凡人物的角度见证了时代的冲突和动荡。恋爱怀孕，惨遭抛弃，森林大火，意外生产，海边救人。阿方索·卡隆在向观众展示命运无力感的同时，也让我们看到了片中不同女性面对困境时的坚韧不拔和温柔包容。
Before, I think it's important for me to do movies that I'm close to the themes. You know, if I'm gonna spend 3 years, in crossing the desert, I wanna, have the best experience and do it with the best people, and that because I don't do it for the result. So for me, I think that understanding the human behaviors, it's very interesting, and also I think that if I can make movies that can help change the world, and not in a very poetic way, but in a real way, that I think that the cinema can change people, and it's very massive. People go to see movies, and they, hopefully after watching it, they come out of the cinema and they had a change. They were transformed. Sometimes it can heal you, sometimes it can help you to reduce a process, to understand the world, to understand your culture or your neighbor. And I think a good example was with Roma. I think it connected internationally. It opened a new space for movies that are not in English language. A movie that is spoken in Spanish and Mixteco, which is a local language. It's black and white, non-actors, and had all these elements. It has never happened something like that. That a movie with these technical conditions, would go so far. So I think it's a present, not only for Mexican cinema, but for authentic stories, that they don't have to necessarily be, the Hollywood subjects. I love that with Roma. It was a personal story that got into the major leagues. Of course, we have a great captain leading us, but I think that that can help, that other kind of movies, with similar themes, with similar topics, can, have more visibility and better diffusion. So that being said, I think that then the content is important. If I can, if I have power of deciding which stories to make, I prefer to make stories that bring good things to the world.
？Estamos solas. No importa lo que te digan. Siempre estamos solas.
导演阿方索·卡隆是个不折不扣的技术控，在他风格迥异的作品中，几乎都在探寻特效与摄影的融合与推动。罗马采用了黑白色调，从本质上还原年代感。手持的 6K 65毫米数码摄影机，在自然主义的光效下，能够清晰地还原大量细节。此外，为了尽可能地再现阿方索记忆中的街区，特效团队做了大量的前期工作。他们参观了原有的建筑，测量了里面的房间，再重新进行构建和布局。小到耕地里的蜥蜴，大到整个街景，片中的诸多场景都用到了一定程度的特效加持，为观者带去了更为浸润式的真实感受。
Why not using the technology? For example, in Roma, we did a lot of construction. We built sets, but also we use the visual effects. We use the techniques. Why not? They're there for, to help tell stories. And sometimes, for example, the visual effects, people think that they have to be big and that you have to feel them. For me, it's the opposite. Maybe a movie has tons of visual effects, but you didn't realize, where was the visual effects, because they're tools to narrate. They're not, and they don't have to be protagonists. If I shoot a film in 35 millimeters, or if I shoot in a studio, I don't want the people to come out from cinema and say like they shot in a studio. I want them to find out 3 years later that they fight because they say, I can't believe you shot in a studio, you know? Because that's not the reason of shooting in a studio, so people can find out or can tell. You know, I don't use technology, you know, to show, you know, or to maybe explain details in my movie that we as filmmakers fail doing it, you know? Sometimes in movies you see explosions and you see, you know, but the real heart of the movie doesn't work. But instead of it, okay, let's put the sound higher, let's do it in 3D, let's, you know, but it doesn't work. And maybe you add more explosions to cover something that was looking really bad, a bad acting, or a mistake of continuity. So using the technology for that, I think it's wrong. You know, well, sometimes it's wrong in the sense that that's not what is meant or intended to. You know, it's a tool for storytelling. So, of course, even, you know, platforms and every way of, you know, of modern ways of showing a movie, I agree, the world is changing and we have to adapt, you know. Our human problems don't change, you know. The stories, you know, won't die with technology, but the tools of, you know, of making a movie and exploding a movie and distributing a movie, you know, they're changing. So I would say it would be dumb not to adapt.
¿Sabes? Se parece a mi pueblo. Claro, allá está seco. Y así igual hacen los animales. Así suena.
好，以上就是今天节目的全部内容，非常感谢各位的收看，让我们下一次再见。
下期您将收看的是一部源自生活的喜剧电影，道尽笑中带泪的世间百态。今晚我们看电影，走进3级采花和它充满奇趣的歌舞世界。